Assalamu alaikum and welcome to this evening's edition of Book Bites. And once again, I've got an exciting local author. One of the greatest benefits of the platform of Book Bites is to celebrate debut writers coming up with new and exciting stories. And this evening's book is called The Stylish Psychologist, a debut novel by Shameema Siddique, a local psychologist and organizational psychologist, a private practice psychologist specializing in assessments and coaching in South Africa. And she's pulled together her life experiences, experience of human capital, and dealing with human behavior in an exciting and entertaining tale in this book, The Stylish Psychologist. So it's an absolute pleasure to welcome online and to the show Shameema Siddique. Welcome to the show, Shameema. Wonderful to have you here and to have this opportunity to chat to you. And of course, congratulations on this debut novel that you've just published.
Thanks for the congrats as well.
Well, it's surely an exciting time for you. It's just been newly launched and a dream come true in many ways. Perseverance is a thing that shows you that you stick to your dreams and you bring them to the surface. What's the process been like for you? Where did all of this begin for you?
Yeah, it started 6 years ago, and it's definitely all about perseverance. I think if one wants to self-test discipline and perseverance, write a book. So I started this journey 6 years ago. And you're absolutely right. It is a dream come true. I dabbled in it. And I think for me, the win came in completing the book. That was kind of my mission. So everything else that's, coming with that is just a bonus. It was something that I wanted to prove to myself. I was clearly in no hurry. It wasn't something that I had to finish as per a deadline. I wrote, I reflected, I grew as a person, as a woman, as a professional, and only concluded it 6 years later. So I think actual writing time may have been 2 years of writing, but over a period of 6 years.
It's fantastic. I always love listening to writing process because it's very much a journey of self-reflection and growth as much as it is about delving into the creative side. And you obviously would be able to tell us more of the sort of broader detail around tapping into creativity. Writing is, it can be cathartic as much as it's creative. So how much of that did you explore in this process? I mean, what does it mean to you to be able to sit down and write, which is perhaps different from, the organizational work that you take?
Writing has always been a part of my life, and I think I've always been a writer. This is literally just my first, professional work as a debut novelist. And as an organizational psychologist, you are constantly having to analyze behavior and make interpretations about it for, corporate leaders, and make, recommendations around suitability, fit. And it's a very different slant on how one has to reflect on a human and go about making decisions for their life in the world of business. So I think all of that psychological report writing was just, an impetus for something else that was to come. So I, became somewhat of an expert in terms of human behavior and being able to write about it. To have then stepped into fantasy and create my own characters was just something, different.
Right. And I think that's really what it is about, right? I mean, the exciting thing about this novel is these are characters you might just meet in your everyday life. And the lovely thing about fiction is it gives you that opportunity to possibly embellish and work around the edges and sort of broaden your characters, get inside their heads. And this whole idea of studying human behavior, but then being able to create such colorful, believable characters is what comes through in your novel. It does look like you had a lot of fun writing this book. How much of these characters were really, I mean, how much of this is fiction? How much do you actually say, you know what, these are the kind of people you do delve in and you do kind of bump into here and there in different walks of life?
Yeah, it's the art imitates life. Can you ever really blur? Is there a difference? Is it ever really completely fiction? These are all of the questions that linger in the minds of a reader. Yes, absolutely. There are, always going to be people like the characters I created in the story. And of course, there are elements of truth around the types of people that one gets to work with in a corporate environment. I mean, it's just multiple layers of diversity. And there's a lot of realism as well in the way I crafted the characters. Like, you probably have met someone with some of those mannerisms and, quirkiness. And yeah, that's, kind of what people want to read as well. But being fiction, I could obviously enhance and really punctuate cute little things that they say or do, or how they present themselves. And yeah, it's a good balance of character building. I definitely had fun with it.
I think it's enjoyable as a reader to be able to get into the mind of your characters because you get a sense of, I mean, your protagonists. You either, I don't know if you could say you either love her or hate her. Or you get a good balance of sometimes she's really, really, really good, and sometimes she's really, really, really bad. Depending on which perspective you look at it from, you can empathize with your character, and you can sometimes say, but that might not be the best choice. We all make these choices that we grapple with. So I think there's a lot of identification. What I found particularly interesting was that you, through a very entertaining story, you also deal and delve with some interesting themes. And on the one hand, you're talking about issues like fertility, which a lot of married women would have, questioned at least once in their lives. And talk to us about that. Women grappling with this idea of being a productive career woman, but also being like the homemaker and being able to, have a family.
This is a theme that you don't really have any inkling of if you read the blurb of the book, or you just kind of look at it on the face of it. You just think, it's just, a fashion oriented or a style oriented psychologist. That comes about as a surprise. I did include it in the book because I feel like it's such a prominent, emergent issue and challenge that women face. And it's just so much more compounded for women who have to show up every day in a corporate environment and work tirelessly to prove themselves, yet are going through such a delicate process behind the scenes. So I may have written it in a way that, has like an element of humor attached to it, but it's also very informative. And it's a way of, striving to let women know, and men going through the process of infertility, that these are very real issues, that happen in day-to-day life. And, sometimes in a work situation, colleagues, peers, seniors, they don't know that this is going on, with women. And, they may be rocking up at a meeting and you have no idea that they've had some invasive procedure happen just an hour before. These are realities. So I wanted that to feature because it's fantasy. Yes, it's fiction, but this is, real time. This is exactly the kind of dynamics that a woman has to grapple with and deal with, which is often overlooked. So go easy on the ladies who are working so hard in corporate.
I agree with you, and I actually thought it was an important highlight, not at all meant as a spoiler, because I felt that I think that a lot of people are more likely to pick up this knowing. I mean, you're looking for a good read, sure, but at the same time, this is a very delicate and important issue that comes across that humanizes your character. And as much as she's very ambitious, she's beautiful, she's puts a lot of thought into how she presents herself to the world out there. A lot of women do take that on as something to delve into. But there's a very sort of vulnerable side that is revealed in this, and it's a very, very important topic, I thought. So I hope that a lot of young women are going to be picking up this novel and reading for that perspective as well. And her relationship, I mean, all the relationships that she engages in, it speaks to how we make these choices around how we create identity. And these relationships that we'll delve in are fun. There's a sisterhood. Speak to us about women and relationships, and how this comes through in your novel in just so many beautiful ways and so many challenging ways as well.
Well, the novel is centered largely around a very woman-oriented team. So, she ends up in this very female-oriented environment. And, they are, ladies who have been in this company for a very long time, again, which is something very topical. You have a newbie entering who perhaps has acquired experience in another organizational context and doesn't necessarily need to earn her stripes from scratch. However, the cohorts who have been there for 20 years plus believe that the newbie really does have to earn their stripes. So therein lies the initial dynamic, internal conflict of how do I embrace this newbie and get her on par with our culture and where we are at. Yeah, so lots of relationships. I think it's, kind of just what corporate politics is about. You have to have a relationship. There has to be some level of communication. And how does one pivot around that and still succeed and still be kind of okay within yourself, to step up and be at work every day? Obviously, some cute, friendships and connections in between help. To have alliances like that really, does make the day seem a little bit shorter. And women and relationships, women and relationships, female relationships, I think that's a very big theme in this book. And the aim was to showcase the protagonist as how one can perceive a particular prototype of a woman who looks like she has it all together, and she is soaring and she's succeeding and she has so much already. So why should she still have the opportunities that we deserve? And yet, if you look at the internal dialogue and you really get to know the protagonist, like she's a little marshmallow, and she's riddled with her insecurities, and she's just trying to survive and be a happy girl, in this dream job that she landed, supposedly.
And it sometimes also talks to the idea that be careful what you wish for, because you don't know what it really is about once until you're sort of chest deep in it, or whatever the case might be. And you kind of empathize with her in that situation because she's a go-getter and she's ambitious, and then she lands herself in this mud bath, literally,
She's so
without giving
positive.
away too much. Yes.
She just wants to do a good job. She's not there to rock the boat in any way. And, unfortunately, she finds herself in the situation where she has to, I guess, operate differently to survive and thrive in a way.
And then breaking with these assumptions. I mean, as much as we talk about sisterhood, and having a sense of support and good relationships and people who make your day, more bearable just to be able to see them. I like that she makes observances around who feels threatened and who doesn't, in terms of, and without even trying. All these kinds of things come up in our daily lives. You can never really control how people see you, or who's going to feel sort of intimidated. And this is group dynamic. Speak to us about some of that without, I mean, I'm not trying to get into too much of like the academic, but just this idea of group dynamic and how we interact in spaces and we don't really know how we'll be received.
She's a stylish psychologist, so you'll often hear in a dialogue the way she fashion polices and critiques just what people are wearing. That becomes like a distractor for her amidst everything else that's going on, where she's trying to change their outfits and change their look and their shoes because it's just not working for her. And then on the other hand, she is. So, Shafinaaz, can you still see me?
I'm on. The screen is just viewing you for now. You can go ahead.
Okay, sure. So, yeah, she's highly intuitive. She's definitely a woman, a character who is not even striving to see everything that she just happens to see. She's so sensitive, and those touch points of, oh, wow, something doesn't feel right here. These are literally day-to-day experiences that people have. It's like a vibe or an energy interpretation or a sense that something isn't feeling quite right, or it's not going in the direction that I wanted to go. And I always feel like, it's because those words are not often expressed, because we're just not quite sure whether there's a space for it, that it's left to misinterpretation. And if people were just a little bit more vocal, a little bit more direct in actually saying, is everything okay? I'm
Right.
picking up a little bit of a vibe here. Am I imagining it, or am I sensing that there's some tension? Can we maybe talk about it or chat about it? Or, am I just completely, off the mark here? Something as simple as that in a few seconds can alleviate, because obviously we come in with our own framework, and it's based on our experiences and our value system. And unless the spoken word is shared or expressed to each other, it just kind of lives on its own in the other person. And then there's somewhat of a void that exists between them. So this is a very analytical character who, I think, just, it's second nature to her to just see things, sense things. But I think it also makes it very funny. It makes it very real, because generally people find things funny when it's true. Think about it. Like, you laugh at humor, or you'll go for stand-up comedy when they've worded something that is 100% true about the human species. So it's no different in this book. She's just kind of calling it as it is.
Right. And you expect that of a character that you've written in the way she has. You expect it to be like sort of this straight shooter in that sense as well, because you're hearing an internal dialogue and she's not leaving anything unsaid, so to speak, in her thoughts. So as the audience, you definitely expect her to say things out. I'm glad you mentioned this, because at the same time, look, our communication as human beings is not always verbal. We watch each other's sort of demeanor, ways of being, body language, and we pick up on that vibe that you speak about. It's just that she is able to verbalize a lot more. What would you say would be the best way for us to learn to speak out more, especially as women? We're always holding back. We're always second guessing our intentions and our way of, relating. We're always worried about how we make the next person feel. I think it's part of socialization, maybe. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how do we break out of it?
There's always the persona. And, persona is from the Greek word that literally means mask. So we have to have our masks on. They do shield us. They do protect us. They give us time to be able to connect with the person, to read the landscape before going all in. So we have to have the persona. However, the way in which this novel is written is that you see both persona presented, and then you see the real true side as well in the inner dialogue. And unfortunately, we don't have the luxury of sharing that inner dialogue in reality. What I would suggest would be a good tactic, a good maneuver. However, it must be done with sincerity, is to quickly identify or observe something that you really admire about the person. There's something that you will pick up on. It could be their tone of voice or the way in which they smile. And I would actually comment on that. It's a way of inviting someone in by acknowledging something beautiful genuinely about themselves. I think that slight little, compliment, positive affirmation is just enough of an opening for there to be a real authentic exchange that starts to happen. So it's really quite simple. We just don't do it enough.
As much as that definitely would sort of break the ice, open up the conversation, and just sort of allow for more fluidity between people communicating. What happens in a toxic work environment? Because there are some thematic considerations in your novel. How do you break a wall that is actually protecting you in certain spaces and certain interactions with people?
It's extremely challenging when you have landed a job that you have wanted, or you may have had aspirations to be in a particular environment, and there aren't endless opportunities that are perfectly niche to what you want. So when you do find that opportunity, and then you're left with a toxic culture or a toxic environment, it's hugely disappointing because then you're left with, the tussle between, do I leave and protect my soul or do I stay on and learn how to, put in place measures that will help me to succeed. Um, I would I would say if I had to give almost tips to survive and navigate your way through a toxic environment, it would be to always remain a bit thick-skinned. You can't be hypersensitive because you will be in tears every hour. Every meeting will be a nightmare, and it's just not the way you want to go in and go deeper in this dream job, in this dream company. It's very important that you build alliances, choose your alliances. There are always alliances, even when it's a nightmare company. You will always have people that will have your back, that will see your truth and will want to see you succeed. And sometimes even more so when you are witnessed as being victimized or targeted or going through a really rough time. You do have the option to leave. I think, leaving just takes away all of the opportunities that you have to go into a space and, turn it around, even if it's just yourself that you turn around, where you can build your resilience and work on your emotional intelligence. Because how does one actually build something like intelligence and regulating your emotions? How do you do that unless you are situated in a place and time? So it's actually an opportunity. I don't think many would view it as a positive opportunity to be in a toxic environment, but you're almost entering a professional war. It's a battlefield, and you have to really choose your battles very carefully. I also think it helps to just be brilliant. Be brilliant at what you are there to do. Talent is always going to be seen eventually, even if there are naysayers that are, trying to derail your pathway or your opportunity for succession into something more. It's only so long that can happen. There's only so long a cap can be put onto that. I think talent eventually, does emerge, and you can't hide talent. And I guess, just be that proverbial benchmark for those who feel the need to, be less favorable in their demeanor and behavior towards you. Rather just show up and be that proverbial benchmark of what you would actually like to see in them. And hopefully, there will be some sort of learnings that can emerge from there.
That's fantastic advice beyond even the scope of the novel, because I think that so many women and men deal with environments where they can feel disempowered, and it can be at the risk and at the cost of showcasing their talent. So choosing your battles, picking your battles, building alliances, from what you said, can be a way to reclaim that space and reclaim the power and shine in your chosen space. So that's fantastic advice. Thank you so much for that. I also know that since this book is currently launching, you've got a potential giveaway in the next month via your group, the Purple Brain Group. So if the audiences can just go onto Instagram, social media, and follow Shameema on the Purple Brain Group, you do stand a chance to win a copy of the novel or get copies through various outlets. And I know that it's going to be a fantastic run for you. It's an exciting time with the new book coming out. People are looking for gifts all over the show, so this is bound to be a good option, a good choice. I also want to thank you for giving us your time. Thank you so much for being on the show, and congratulations once again with this new book.
Thank you so much, Shafinaaz. I am so happy that I got to be interviewed by you.
Well, I look forward to hearing more about your process and your journey as this book launches. And inshallah, we'll be keeping an eye out for all your social media and all the exciting engagements that you're meant to have over the next few weeks and months, inshallah. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
And so there you have it. We spoke to debut novelist and psychologist Shameema Siddique about her new book, The Stylish Psychologist. Once again, please follow the Purple Brain Group to stand a chance to win a copy of the novel, or to find a way to get copies of the novel as it hits bookshelves and around the country, or get a direct signed copy from the Purple Brain Group. That's it from me this weekend. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.